The most effective teams separate perceived complexity from real friction. We surface how they're already reallocating based on it. Welcome to AI on AI, where we translate the breakneck pace of artificial intelligence into pragmatic moves for business and technology leaders. Today, we're unpacking a 5-part playbook for staying ahead. Align, activate, amplify, accelerate, and govern. And we'll pressure test it with real stories, technical deep dives, and a few contrarian takes along the way.
Thanks for having us. Let's set context. Frontier-scale releases have multiplied several-fold since 2022. Inference costs for mainstream models have dropped orders of magnitude, and adoption is outpacing the desktop internet by a huge factor. The signal here is not just speed, but compounding learning loops. Teams that operationalize quickly don't just move faster, they learn faster, which is harder to copy.
And that learning compounding relies on technical leverage. Things like retrieval-augmented generation with strong data pipelines, model routing to minimize latency and cost, and evaluation harnesses that separate sparkle from substance. It's not enough to deploy a model. You need scaffolding that makes the model trustworthy at work speed.
The leadership lens is straightforward but not easy. People adopt change when they see the why, the how, and what's in it for them. So Align means clear executive storytelling about competitive advantage and practical goals like AI should be present in your daily workflow, with leaders role modeling usage to normalize behavior and reduce fear.
When we talk activate, we're talking about structured skill building embedded in the flow of work. Teams that tied role-specific microcourses to everyday tasks moved adoption rates from the teens to well above 80% in weeks, largely because training wasn't extra. It was how the work itself evolved.
And govern is not the brake pedal. It's the guardrail that lets you accelerate. The trick is a lightweight, responsible AI playbook, policy as code where feasible, and an escalation map. What's safe to try, what needs peer review, and what requires risk sign-off. When governance is explicit, teams move faster with less second-guessing.
Let's anchor on Align. What does good executive storytelling and goal setting look like when the board wants outcomes yesterday and teams are wary?
2 moves that land. First, articulate the existential rationale, whether that's keeping pace with customer expectations or compressing cycle times your competitors can't match. Second, set a company-wide adoption goal tied to daily work. Like every role will use an AI co-pilot at least 20 times a day to draft, analyze, or support decisions, and then track the signal, usage, share-outs, and impact stories, so employees see momentum and know leadership isn't just waving a banner.
I'll add a supporting heuristic, lowest effective model, meaning you route each task to the cheapest, fastest model that reliably satisfies the job. When executives share how they've wired this into their own routine, summarizing briefings, probing scenarios, drafting board memos, it demystifies the tools and shows principled cost discipline from the top.
Right? And if I may, alignment is stronger when you show people a map from prompt to production. Like, here's the intake form for use cases. Here's how we evaluate risk-reward, and here's the path to a pilot. Ambiguity is the enemy of adoption. Activate next. What does an effective skills program look like beyond a slide deck and a few lunch and learns?
The highest ROI play we've seen is a tiered curriculum aligned to role archetypes: sales, finance, ops, engineering, each with a progression: awareness, hands-on guided labs, and applied challenges measured by actual workflow changes. Champions are central here. Select credible, enthusiastic mentors in each function and arm them with lesson plans, office hours, and a shared space to swap what works.
And link it to career incentives. Use OKRs to set role-specific AI goals, recognize meaningful contributions in performance reviews, and call out wins in team meetings. When people see AI fluency influencing growth, the waterline rises on its own.
Don't forget safety training. People need a quick, clear guide to what's safe to try, how to handle sensitive data, and when to escalate. Teach prompt hygiene, data minimization, red teaming basics, and how to use your internal AI safely with customer or financial data.
Amplify. How do you prevent 15 teams from solving the same problem 15 times? Build a centralized AI knowledge hub, actually used, not just created, housing approved prompts, reusable workflows, function call catalogs, and architecture examples. Then wire it into the tools where people work, so discovery is ambient. Search a help doc. Your assistant suggests the best guide. Someone shares a win. Auto-ingest into the hub with tags and a short pattern card describing the workflow.
Keep the cadence, monthly AI newsletters, short show and tells in all hands, and active communities in your chat platform. Spotlight both everyday wins, like shaving 30 minutes off a weekly report, and breakthroughs like a new retrieval system that reduced escalations by a third.
I like team-level reinforcement too. Managers should open with AI wins of the week, even small ones, because repetition is the mother of skill. Momentum spreads by social proof.
Accelerate. This is where great ideas either stall or scale. What's the infrastructure and governance pattern that gets you from pilot to production quickly?
3 pieces. First, unblock access, standing environment, approved models, and data connectors on day 1. Second, a clear intake and prioritization rubric scoring impact, feasibility, risk, and reuse potential. Third, a cross-functional AI council mandated to unblock, not to gatekeep. So if risk is low and the value's high, teams get greenlit within days, not quarters.
Then instrument the pipeline. Telemetry for latency, cost per task, success rate, and groundedness. Set SLAs and error budgets. When a pilot hits a quality threshold and stability metrics hold, your playbook should specify exactly what promotion to production entails. Code review, security checks, and runbooks for monitoring and rollback.
Reward success explicitly. If a team creates a durable efficiency gain, give back budget or time for the next wave. Nothing accelerates faster than showing that impact earns autonomy.
Govern. Many leaders fear governance will slow them down. What's a lightweight yet robust approach?
Start with a plain language responsible AI playbook. Define usage tiers, internal only versus customer-facing versus regulated, data handling rules, masking, minimization, retention, prompt protection, filters against sensitive content and prompt injection, and escalation paths. Implement policy as code where possible so guidelines are enforced in tooling, not buried in wikis, and run quarterly practice checks to see where the guidelines actually help or hinder.
And put a friendly face on it. Spin up an internal assistant that knows the playbook and answers, "Can I do X?" in seconds. If the question touches sensitive territory, the assistant should guide people to the right human reviewer instead of a hard no.
Governance must evolve. Hold short retrospectives each quarter, pull in legal and functional teams, and update the rules to match how people work. The fastest organizations treat governance like product. Iterate.
Let's hit technical depth. Walk us through a solid, retrieval, augmented generation stack for the enterprise, and where teams often trip. Sure, start by chunking documents semantically, not just by length. Merge short sections that cohere and keep entities intact. Generate embeddings with a consistent model and store them with metadata for permissions and freshness. At query time, use hybrid retrieval, sparse keyword plus dense vectors, followed by a re-ranker to improve relevance. Enforce document-level access filters pre-retrieval, and inject a citation requirement into the prompt so answers point to sources. Finally, rebuild the context window with structure, headings, bullets, and highlights so the model sees the right scaffolding.
Add a freshness strategy. Time decay boosts for recent docs and scheduled re-embeddings for updated content. And be careful with chunk size. Too small and you lose context. Too big and you swallow the context window. I like adaptive chunking based on content type. Policies get finer chunks with explicit cross-references. Product specs get larger chunks tagged by component.
Security trip-ups are common. Failing to enforce row-level or doc-level permissions at retrieval turns into leaks. Treat permissions as a first-class predicate in the vector store and at the application layer. Log all retrievals to a privacy ledger, and periodically test with synthetic canary data to ensure isolation works.
Let's make this concrete. 3 business stories, anonymized, with the strategic and technical guts.
A global cosmetics group set up a central AI lab and collected over 1,000 employee ideas, then prototyped high-value assistants. Things like multilingual product Q&A and campaign localization. By standardizing intake and a reusability rubric, they scaled patterns across brands and saw cycle times drop notably in creative workflows within 2 quarters.
A pro sports organization embedded role-based training into daily ops. Operations staff, marketing, and coaching analytics each got tailored prompts, labs, and office hours. AI fluency jumped from the mid-teens to well over 80% as measured by weekly active usage, and game day prep reports went from hours to minutes with improved consistency.
A European bank created a central network to surface ideas, prioritize cross-functional use cases, and resolve data access issues quickly. That moved projects from proof of concept to production faster, with model telemetry and policy as code ensuring that customer data handling stayed compliant as they scaled.
Let's talk LMOps and measurement. How do you know a use case is production-worthy and stays that way? Build an evaluation harness with 3 layers. First, a static test set of domain questions with golden answers to measure groundedness and factuality. Second, a synthetic edge case set to probe boundaries, ambiguous phrasing, tricky entities, prompt injection attempts. Third, a human-rated sample each release to catch regressions. Use a rubric-based LLM as judge for speed but calibrated against human ratings so it doesn't drift. Monitor live with metrics like time to answer, citation coverage, and user override rate.
And watch cost and latency. Add caching for repeated queries, speculative decoding to reduce latency if your stack supports it, and dynamic routing so simple queries go to lighter models. The heuristic is time to trust. How quickly does a user feel confident in the output? Drive that down with strong grounding and clear citations.
On risk, run red team sprints quarterly. Attempt prompt injection, data exfiltration, and role confusion. Track near-miss incidents and feed them back into your guardrails. I like an automated classifier that scores potential policy violations at the prompt and response levels, with graduated interventions from soft warnings to hard blocks.
We need at least one contrarian view. What's a commonly held belief in AI adoption you think is leading people astray?
Here's one. Everyone fixates on efficiency first, but the real moat is revenue-side capability creation. If you spend all your leadership attention on shaving minutes, you'll miss new product experiences and services that didn't exist before. The second-order effect is competitors who build new revenue streams end up reinvesting and outrunning you.
I'll push back slightly. Efficiency is the forcing function that funds exploration. What matters is sequencing. Win trust and budget with efficiency, then pivot those gains into net new capabilities. The intake rubric should allocate a healthy portfolio slice to explore bets early, not only exploit.
Another contrarian angle, centralized AI councils become bottlenecks. My recommendation is governed sandboxes, pre-approved datasets, models, and guardrails, where teams can ship internal tools without council review and only escalate when a use case hits a risk or scale threshold. You preserve speed without losing control.
I agree, with the caveat that sandboxes need real boundaries and telemetry. If sandboxes become shadow IT, your governance debt balloons. So yes to sandboxes, but wired.
Let's bring in emerging markets and counterfactuals. What changes when bandwidth is constrained, regulatory clarity varies, or language coverage is spotty?
Training has to be mobile-first and asynchronous. Short micro-lessons, low-bandwidth video, and downloadable prompt packs. Champions become even more vital as local translators of practice, and you measure progress with lightweight signals like prompts reused rather than heavy platforms that may not be accessible.
Technically, consider smaller on-device or edge models for low-latency tasks, paired with server-side heavyweights for complex reasoning. Use multilingual embeddings and machine translation in the retrieval pipeline, but maintain local language sources as the ground truth. Watch for semantic drift. Translation can mask meaning, so preserve original citations.
Data residency and privacy rules diverge widely. Build region-aware pipelines from day one. Policy as code should select compliant storage and models per region automatically. The third-order effect is architectural. If you design for locality early, you can scale globally without replatforming later.
I want to double-click function calling and tool use. What are best practices for orchestrating multi-step tasks reliably?
Define tools with strict input-output schemas and use the model's function calling with structured JSON so you can type check. Decompose tasks into declarative steps. Retrieve, validate, compute, draft rather than one giant prompt. Add a controller that enforces step order and timeouts. For reliability, log tool call sequences and implement a replay mode for debugging.
And don't forget self-checks. Ask the model to verify outputs against constraints or business rules. For example, confirm the recommendations cite at least 2 internal sources and do not contradict policy X. Then parse the self-check as machine-readable. It's not foolproof, but it catches a surprising number of slip-ups.
Layer guardrails at the tool boundary. If a tool touches sensitive systems, require a risk token from the orchestrator that expires fast and is tied to the user's entitlements. Least privilege, every time.
Prompt engineering can feel faddish. How should leaders make it durable and scalable?
Treat prompts like code. Version them, peer review, run A/B tests, and keep a library of patterns with purpose. Summarization with citations, decision memos with pro-con tables, contract review with risk flags. The library lives in your knowledge hub and is wired into your assistant so people can insert patterns with one click rather than reinventing them.
Provide a prompt-to-process path. When a prompt proves valuable, convert it into a formal workflow or an app with buttons and guardrails. That's how you move from heroics to systems.
Let's craft a 90-day plan that integrates align, activate, amplify, accelerate, and govern without boiling the ocean.
Day 030, declare the why, set a company-wide usage goal, and recruit functional champions. Pick 3 lighthouse use cases, 1 efficiency, 1 quality, 1 growth, and define success metrics.
In parallel, launch role-based microcourses, a champions program with office hours, and a monthly show-and-tell cadence. Protect time. First Friday workshops where teams improve one workflow with AI.
Stand up the sandbox, pre-approved models, a retrieval stack connected to your intranet with permissions, and an intake form with a prioritization rubric. Add dashboards for usage, latency, and groundedness.
Build the evaluation harness and test sets for the lighthouse use cases. Wire in logging, caching, and routing for cost latency. Define promotion criteria from pilot to production.
Publish the responsible AI playbook, ship an internal assistant to answer policy questions, and implement policy as code for data handling. Schedule a 60-day governance retro to tune the rules.
How do we measure progress that actually matters to the business, not just activity?
Track a trifecta: adoption, weekly active users and prompts reused, workflow impact, cycle time, quality gains like fewer rework loops, and throughput to production, time from idea to live. Fold in at least 1 growth metric: lead conversion uplift, product feature velocity, or launch cadence.
Add reliability KPIs, groundedness score, citation coverage, and user override rate. If people constantly override outputs, you don't have trust yet. That metric moves in tandem with adoption.
Don't miss culture signals. Percentage of teams sharing AI wins monthly and manager-led recognition moments. Culture eats strategy, and culture shows up in the calendar.
Risks we haven't discussed enough.
Prompt injection is real. Untrusted content can hijack instructions. Sanitize inputs, use isolation for browsing tools, and treat external text as adversarial by default. And beware automation bias. People overtrust fluent outputs. Enforce cited or silent for decisions that matter.
Model drift. Updates can improve averages but regress on your niche tasks. Always pin model versions for critical flows and rerun test suites before upgrades. Decouple release schedules from vendor timelines with a compatibility layer.
And cost drift. Little experiments scale into big bills. Compress embeddings periodically, prune unused indexes, and cache aggressively. Governance should own cost hygiene playbooks.
Before we close, Give me one heuristic each that leaders can remember on Monday morning.
Portfolio the pipeline. 60% efficiency, 25% quality, 15% growth. Then rebalance quarterly. What you fund is what you get.
Train in the workflow, not about the workflow. Make the next best action one click away inside the tools people already use.
Ground everything. Data retrieval, citations, self-checks. If it's not grounded, it's not for production.
Route ruthlessly, lowest effective model, then escalate when needed. Speed and savings are compounding assets.
Govern in code, explain in plain English. Safety shouldn't require a lawyer to decode.
Final thought. Amara's law says we overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. In this moment, the short term is already formidable. Early adopters are growing revenue faster, and the long term will favor organizations that turn AI from a tool into a way of working through align, activate, amplify, accelerate, and govern.
And remember, the companies that win will turn scattered wins into shared systems. When knowledge becomes reusable and governance becomes enabling, your AI advantage becomes durable.
Technically, keep the scaffolding strong. Retrieval done right, evaluations wired in, and orchestration that's inspectable. It's the boring reliability work that converts demos into durable value.
Culturally, narrate the journey, tell the stories, celebrate the small steps, and normalize learning curves. Progress loves visibility.
Responsibly, iterate the rules. Quarter by quarter, risk evolves, and so should your playbook. Fast and safe aren't opposites if you engineer for both.
That's our time. Thank you all for a conversation that balanced strategy with code-level truth. And to our listeners, take this as permission and a plan. Start now, learn fast, share widely, and govern lightly but clearly. We'll see you next time on AI on AI. Before we sign off, let's stitch the end-to-end journey, align, activate, amplify, accelerate, govern, into a single practical arc. You start by declaring the why and a visible adoption goal. You equip people with role-based training and champions embedded in the flow of work. You turn scattered wins into shared systems through a living knowledge hub and a drumbeat of storytelling. You wire a fast lane from intake to production with unblocked tools, a prioritization rubric, and a council that ungates rather than gatekeeps. And you keep the pedal down safely with a responsible AI playbook, policy as code, and quarterly tune-ups. Do this, and AI becomes how work gets done, not a side project. Technically, the highlights are clear. Hybrid retrieval with a re-ranker and structured context windows to boost groundedness, adaptive chunking plus time decay to keep content fresh, orchestration via function calling with strict schemas and a controller to enforce step order, an evaluation harness, golden sets, synthetic edge cases, and calibrated LLM as judge, and a cost latency spine of caching, dynamic routing to the lowest effective model, and telemetry for trust signals like citation coverage and user override rate.
Strategically, 3 insights stand out. First, executive storytelling plus a company-wide usage goal converts anxiety into agency. Second, incentives matter, so tie AI contributions to performance and promotions and reward teams with reinvestment when they create durable gains. Third, don't over-rotate to efficiency. Earmark part of the portfolio for new revenue side capabilities so you build moats, not just margins.
Operationally, the 90-day checklist is your on-ramp. Launch role-based microcourses, appoint credible champions with office hours, protect monthly experimentation time, publish the intake rubric and promotion criteria, and make AI wins of the week a standing agenda item. Remember the mantra, train in the workflow, not about the workflow, and put the next best action one click away in the tools people already use.
On safety and resilience, govern in code and explain in plain English. Ship a concise, responsible AI playbook with a safe-to-try map and escalation paths. Enforce data handling and permissions at retrieval with privacy ledgers and canary data. Run quarterly red team sprints for prompt injection and data exfiltration. Pin model versions for critical flows and rerun tests before upgrades. And keep the cited or silent norm for consequential decisions to tame automation bias.
We also surfaced 2 contrarian but useful moves. Use governed sandboxes to avoid council bottlenecks while keeping telemetry and boundaries tight, and deliberately portfolio your pipeline, efficiency, quality, growth, so early wins finance exploration without starving it. As the old line goes, what gets measured gets managed, so measure adoption, time to trust, throughput from idea to production, and at least one growth signal. One last technical nudge for global and resource-constrained contexts. Go mobile first for training, pair lightweight edge models with server-side reasoning, keep multilingual embeddings with local language ground truth, and make region-aware pipelines your default so residency rules don't force a replatform later.
And a leadership reminder, culture compounds, role model daily use, narrate progress relentlessly, and turn individual ingenuity into institutional capability through a hub, a cadence, and recognition. Momentum is a management choice.
Quick recap of key innovations you can deploy now. Hybrid retrieval with re-ranking and adaptive chunking, function calling orchestration with self-checks, evaluation harnesses tied to promotion criteria, policy as code plus an internal policy assistant, governed sandboxes with telemetry and portfolio management that funds both efficiency and invention. Call to action for the next 2 weeks. Pick 3 lighthouse use cases, stand up a sandbox with pre-approved models and connectors, appoint champions in each function, publish a 1-page responsible AI playbook, instrument basic telemetry, and start sharing wins weekly. Start small, move fast, learn in public, and adjust the guardrails as you go. That's our wrap. Thanks for joining AI on AI. If today had a single thesis, it's this: speed plus scaffolding beats speed alone, and the organizations that treat AI as a way of working, aligned, activated, amplified, accelerated, and governed, will set the pace. We'll see you next time. If a specific insight resonated, send this podcast to a teammate and compare takeaways. Shared reflection compounds value.